All right, guys, let's get into it. I wanted to show some thought processes of a modder who, you know, might be following some stuff they've seen on YouTube, but then you're going to try it on a blaster, a different blaster, where the parts might not all work out as what you've seen on video. So, we're going to look at some things, some troubleshooting things, some regular modding things that I always do. But yeah, let's start off with the magwell. So the magwell, of course, I have this one set up for short darts. Um, the magwell, something so simple, it's an adapter for it to be front facing. You need it for the short darts because with a pusher, when the pusher is elongated so that it can make the short dart travel far enough to get to the flywheels. The issue is when you make this longer, is it going to retract behind the dart correctly to feed the next dart? So that's why you need this adapter. This adapter is going to have your magazine that's like a Talon mag, more front oriented, so that is able to retract behind the dart. Because otherwise, like a springer wouldn't be here, and it would just hit the top of the dart basically, and not allow it to feed. Anyways, I did run into an issue where this did not fit into this blaster very well. So I would have to take it and pretty much hold the top of it and just shove it into the blaster as hard as I could. Mainly because there's just a little bit of ribbing around the base of it. Let me see, I've got a new one here. Just a little bit of ribbing and stuff that goes around just this little lip. I just kind of shaved a little bit, like a millimeter or two off around the outside of this so that it fit better in there. Because I didn't want it to be slammed in there. Plus, it was like maybe slightly off, off being level. But yeah, so that was that fix for that. I do always recommend putting on a weaker return spring here for your trigger, by the way. Little FYI. It just makes for smoother trigger action. I mean, if you think about just firearms in general and aiming, that you're looking for a nice, easy trigger pull so it doesn't pull your aim off. And you can lube all day, whatever you want to do as far as trying to get everything smooth, but man, you put a nicer, weaker return spring. I mean, not so weak that it doesn't return, but you guys can see it. This thing works pretty good, you know? I recommend always doing that on, let me see, Raven has anything that has a terrible trigger pull or just feels heavy and clunky. Maybe try replacing that spring. Another tip, your rev trigger sometimes, or just any springs that go on triggers in general. People lose these springs when you disassemble and they pop off and go flying. Just put a little bit of hot glue just to keep it in place. Not a lot, just a little thin layer. I mean, it doesn't even look like hot glue that I put on there. Anywho, I'm not going to really go over switch placement. Switch placement is switch placement. I mean, I cut out parts in the ribbing that are in the way of where I want to put the switch. And oh, this is interesting. Actually, I do usually look for a post in here that either I'm not going to use or is not in use anymore. Like for instance, this, usually they have a cover that goes over the switch here on a stock blaster. And so when they have a cover there, usually there's a screw post for that cover. And I usually like to use that screw post. I'll put a screw in it and just kind of screw the switch down and make sure it doesn't really have a bunch of room. You can see it's loose. It's not glued down, but it works great. What else? Oh, go over a little bit of just cosmetic mod this faux barrel here. So Adam at Band Blaster discovered that even with like big openings, you can see here that the dart's not being impeded by the barrel as far as hitting it if it's going straight down the center. But there is an air density, especially when there's it's in an enclosed area, and the air has nowhere to go when it's enclosed except for out the front. So if you think about a dart having to push the air through the air, the longer the barrel is, even if it's loose, it's still having more of a struggle. The fact that the air that it is pushing can only go out the front. So that adds more weight. And that's going to make your dart travel inconsistently and weird. It can, knuckleball a little bit in there, and then maybe it can hit the barrel. But anyways, if you cut these air channels, it gives the air somewhere to go. As dart travels through, that air is going to release out the sides, and it's not going to impede the dart's vector as much. This thing I found that the threading just kind of magically fit in here in between this space and the shell. Of course, this whole front end is pretty modified. Some of you may have seen the finished product. There's like retaliator pieces glued in and weird things going on. But anyways, I wanted a faux barrel after I cut all this front end up, because I didn't even know I wanted a faux barrel till later. But somehow magically I discovered that when I have these two halves in, this threading piece fits in between these two ribbings, and when I close it, I just have to have the barrel centered in line, and it doesn't really rotate or move too much when it's closed, and fits in there pretty good. So I cut these air channels in because I found out that it works. He did it on a Raven, I believe, and was having all sorts of FPS issues and accuracy issues, and as soon as he cut air channels in that Raven barrel, it was all fixed. Anywho, let me see, what else can we get over? Oh, so for daybreaks, this was already fitted for daybreaks. This is a dual stage band blasters cage, as some of you may notice. I am the only one that has one for this modulus, because I begged, whined, and cried and pined to him, telling him that I needed it for this build. And eventually it came to fruition. He sent it to me, and now I've been sitting on it for like a month after I was like so excited to get it. Just life has been busy. Anyways, I'm digressing. So the band blasters setup that I'm not the band blasters, the daybreak setup that I had here was 2S FRVs and 2 Merlins, and it was real erratic. This is a 40.5 spacing. I don't know what I was thinking. Again, this is a mod from years ago now. For full length, it was hitting like 220s, 230s. For short darts, it was like really erratic. I can't even describe how erratic it would be. I feel like even when I put a lipo in it in different days, that it would react differently. But anyways, we're getting rid of this because we're putting in this band blasters. Some of the shell issues fitting in this shell, some of it is similar, but since these wheels are bigger than the daybreaks, you start running into a little more problems as far as shell fitting, especially a dual stage. I know was a single stage, was daybreaks, and was this. Actually was daybreaks. I don't think I had to get rid of trimming this part of the post here. On the opposite shell here, let's see, this is the opposite shell. On the opposite shell, I pretty much lost that whole screw post, which made it so that top of the blaster had a gap right here. You guys can see this screw. I kind of just drilled my own screw straight through the entire blaster to keep that top part closed. It comes out a little bit on the other side, but not much. So you want to use a screw that's a good length if you're going to do something like this, where it doesn't poke you on the other side, or use some bolt cutters and maybe file it down. Anyways, if you really hate what it looks like, put a sticker over it. Anyways, the second stage wheel is the one where I was having the most issue on closure, which I thought was weird because some of the inner shells where I trimmed here should have been equal to over here, but it just wasn't on shell closure. Let me see if I can get it closer. So for the single stage here, you can see some, like the wheel, I believe when I closed it, would rub here some. I'm not sure. I went ahead and just sand dremeled that down. I got rid of that post completely, and it's unused. For the second stage, I found that this part right here, it will just hit the top of the second stage wheel, the top wheel, and just kind of, and let me put this on here so you can see, I guess, where the wheel was hitting. So I gotta line something on the bottom to get this thing to close here. Let's just take this out for closure purposes. Anyways, we can see the top of the wheel. Oh, is it not closed right there? There we go. I've got the top of the wheel exposed here on the area that was just, it just seemed like it kept hitting the wheel no matter what. And it was infuriating me because that's like the one wheel I couldn't see or try to put my finger in a certain area. I can put my finger in certain areas to see if the wheels have free spin, you know, but while the shell is closed, like I can even stick my finger in here and kind of check this wheel here, you know. But like this wheel, that's the only one I couldn't like find a way to free spin without seeing like where it was hitting. Like you can see I just gave up. I was sanding and sanding and sanding, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna cut a hole there. I don't think it's gonna bother me that much. I've got kind of rat rod aesthetics as it is. I don't do a lot of painting. I do a lot of puzzle piece matching for my modding. So I figured, hey, I'm just going to cut a hole and leave it. And if I don't like it, I can put a sticker over it. Anyways. So yeah, other mentions on this cage, since it's the first one prototyping, this ribbing here, you can see this ribbing here at the bottom was already cut. Because I think it was an issue anyways where it hit a daybreak cage. I don't know if it was the same on the opposite shell closure. I think I did. I had to cut some on the opposite shell too here. Honestly, this ribbing is just like a reinforcement ribbing to keep things separate from the flywheel, down here from the battery. As you can see here, since I kept using the battery compartment, I did have to make something so that the battery actually did not fall and hit the flywheel, since I cut this ribbing out that was meant for the stock part. But anyways, this ribbing was a little tight here where the cage goes in. I have to physically bend it out of the way, including the opposite side of the shell, to get it close. Could I just cut it off? Yes, but I was dealing with other issues up here, so I kind of just ignored it, because honestly, if I pulled the ribbing back, bent it just a little bit, it's not going to bend the cage. The ribbing's going to bend permanently, probably eventually. But I decided to just leave it in because it fits. It's still snug fit. It didn't seem to be bothering anything else. Yeah. As you can see here, any loose wiring, like I had some wiring here where I guess I might have measured too much wire for myself. I didn't want to hit the flywheels or go anywhere else, so you know, there's some hot glue here just to keep the wires down. I was able to use the original wiring wire channel cover, so that's probably because I'm using the 18 gauge wire instead of 16 or larger. For most applications, I think that the 18 is good enough, and I like it that it's thin and fits, and you can put it behind stuff really easily and just channel it through the blaster. What else? Yeah, this was mainly I just wanted to show you guys some thought processes and just things a modder goes through, because things don't always go as planned. Like I was messing with this top wheel for hours, just trying to not cut a hole, and then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm gonna cut a hole and it's gonna look fine. But anyways, next video, hopefully I'll have this all buttoned up. Maybe we'll do some test firing. Thanks for watching, guys.